wrong river. But like another vision Ezekiel had, my bones were beyond dry. You could blow on my life and it's everywhere. Ezekiel said in 37:3, and he said to me, "Son of man, can these bones live?" And I answered, "Oh God, you know." Ezekiel knew he didn't know. So he says, "Oh God, you know." But God asked him a question. What will we do when God asks us a question? These both visions speak to us about how God can turn toxic, dead paths into something impossible. He turns it into impossible, and the impossible is in John 10:10. He turns it into life and life more abundantly. He takes the Dead Sea and makes it fresh. He makes the unfruitful and turns it into fruitful. It's impossible, but God can do that. Like the river of vitality and life transformation that emerged from the temple. I mean, this temple must have been chock full of water, all the way to the ceilings, all the way to the walls, and then you see a trickle coming out from underneath the threshold. God's will is that everyone can live an abundant life, but it's got to get out of the temple. God will keep showing up and whispering. Have you heard his whisper recently? Whispering to us that he has a life-giving path that will heal all the effects of our sin. All the effects of our sin. Friends, let God heal you today to become a life-giving source, to become part of that water in the temple for others who are so profoundly affected by their hurts, their hang-ups, and even their disobedience. They need to have that healing leaf. So I'm going to turn back to Ezekiel's story of transformation as it came from the temple. Ezekiel wrote in verses 1-2, "The water began trickling from under the temple threshold. He measured off 1,000 cubits and led me through water that was ankle deep." At 18, I started to learn what ankle deep meant. He led me to a place in life where one crazy night, while I was walking downtown Tacoma, I was invited from a stranger to have coffee and chili, a horrible combination by any means. But it turned out to be a Christian coffee house, a coffee house run by Christians. I mean, this place, this little hole in the wall in downtown Tacoma on Tacoma Avenue was so full of water that you had to cut the spirit in that place with a knife. It was so thick. I was enjoying my meal and I heard this crazy voice where I learned to hear the Spirit of God. The Spirit said to me, "The meek will inherit." My problem was I didn't know what a meek was, and I didn't know what they were going to inherit. But somehow I thought I should get in touch with somebody like my grandparents. They were pastors and church planners and mission station planners and radio station planners and chaplains in hospitals where they didn't have chaplains. They were so full of serving God. For some reason, I had to find somebody like them to tell me, what is a meek and what are they going to inherit? So I walked into a worship center I'd passed many times, first grade through 12th grade. And it was midweek, and the door to the sanctuary was open. I walked down the center aisle, and there was 2 rooms on either side of the pulpit. One door was open with 3 men, and they're talking. They were talking about the lost youth in the streets of Tacoma. I thought they were talking, so I interrupted and I said, "I think you're talking about somebody like me." They were as surprised as I was because they weren't actually talking. They were praying for the lost youth on the streets of Tacoma. So after we all calmed down, this messed me up. They're talking about me, and they were prepared. That just messed me up. They gave a gift away to me that they had inherited. That's the key. Fill this temple, Lord. Fill these temples, fill this temple. So this gift that we have inherited doesn't stay here. It goes out. They invited me to talk to the person they were talking to. I thought it was a horrible conversation. But I did, and it turned out to be Jesus. And Jesus saved me that day. I kept walking into the unknown. This whole thing was so unknown, so unfamiliar, but there's something about it that brought peace. So I just kept walking into the unknown. But you know what I found? I kept finding Jesus. So like Ezekiel's statement, I started walking into the ankle-deep water, asking Jesus for forgiveness on anything. I mean, if I turned the wrong shoe, if I picked up the wrong thing, I just asked forgiveness all the time. I just wanted to be so close to the Lord. But there's people that are hurt. There's people that are bound up with regret that don't know this. In God, there is so much more. But in Ezekiel's verse 47:3, he writes, "He led me through the water that was knee-deep." Time to go knee-deep. Pam and I began following the Lord into a ministry that was knee-deep. In San Francisco, we started to learn about cultures and how to pray for people, how to see people saved. We entered this ministry where we began to learn about cultures and grow in our relationship with Jesus. We learned to pray like never before. We saw God solve problems in people's lives in San Francisco, in the Polk District, in these areas where you really don't want to go on your own. We saw transformation that we could never have done on our own. As Ezekiel said, and the water kept flowing from the temple. It's horrible. Just let me tell you from a preacher's side, it's horrible to stand here and not have the Spirit of the Lord. They don't get and have it perfect. But it's even more horrible to try to be a representative for Him in the darkest places on this planet. Friends, if the water stays in the temple, it turns into a reservoir. To be life-giving, the water must leave the temple as a canal with many tributaries where it can widen and it can deepen. And then Ezekiel wrote in verse 4, "He measured off another 1,000 cubits and led me through the water up to waist deep." Up to waist deep. Going deeper in God's pathways is where fruitfulness is available for a life that's experiencing unfruitfulness. The question for us is, are we willing to continue growing deeper as obedient followers of Christ? There's no doubt many of us are followers of Christ, if not all. But are we done? Are we willing to go deeper? Because the neighborhood surrounding this temple desperately needs influence. Going back to Ezekiel's words in 5 through 12, he measured off another 1,000 cubits, but now it was a river that I could not cross because the water had risen and was deep enough to swim in, but it's a river that no one could cross. He asked me, "Son of man, do you see this? Do you see this? Do you see this image where this water is so deep that no one could cross, but it's deep enough to swim in?" If you see it, I hope you can't unsee it, because it calls for action. Then he led me back to the bank of the river. When I arrived there, I saw a great number of trees on each side of the river. He said to me, "The water flows toward the eastern region and goes down into the Arabah, where it enters the Dead Sea." This is absolutely powerful. When it empties into the sea, the salty water there becomes fresh. Man, I'm so glad that the Spirit of God entered my life. And it was there this morning. God's love, in a sense, created the first desalinization plant for the soul. You got dirt, you got too much salt, God can do the work. Even when we're hurt from sin, there's times of healing. There's times of healing from our sin, somebody else's sin. There's times for healing, and that's okay. God can make us pure from, like we heard earlier, from glory to glory, meaning from victory to victory. He wants us to have victory. He wants us to experience glory, the light of his glory, the light of his presence. Shine, Jesus, shine, I pray. Ezekiel goes on, swarms of living creatures will live wherever the water flows. There will be large numbers of fish because the water flows there and makes the salt water fresh. So where the river flows, everything will live. Everything will live. Fishermen will stand along the shore from the Engedi to the Englaim. There will be places for spreading nets, the fish of many kinds, like the fish of the Mediterranean Sea. I hope one day I get to go to Greece. But the swamps and marshes will not become fresh. They will be left for salt. Fruit trees of all kinds will grow on the banks of the river. Their leaves will not wither. Remember when David said that? The leaves will not wither, nor will their fruit fail. And this is incredible. I was in horticulture for years. Every month, they'll bear fruit. That is impossible. Every month, they'll bear fruit because the water from the sanctuary flows to them. The fruit will serve for food and their leaves for healing. Ezekiel's life-giving vision starts from a temple, and I'm just imagining that this temple is full of life-giving water. Just imagine this, we're in a fish tank, and it's full of water. And pretty soon, it's going to trickle over the side, and it's going to go out our north gate. Ezekiel's vision begins with out of the temple begins small things. Coming from it, then it became a river, creating life-giving healing work. Only the Holy Spirit could create fruitfulness from unfruitfulness. Only God could have done it. And only God can do it through us. And to experience it comes from obedience. The simplest thing to obey the Lord. Do you hear his voice sometime today? Do you hear his voice this past week? Have you heard his voice this past year? He promises that voice is always going to stay there. Not for our sakes, but for the barren places and the people who feel that barrenness around us. Looking backward and forward, Ezekiel could answer God's question. Son of man, do you see this? Those who are affected by sin can become whole, can become pure, and become fruitful. So what will it be? Will it be ankle deep, knee deep, waist deep, or deeper than we can go on our own? Are we willing to go into the future seeing hurt and healed lives transformed? That's our question. Do we want to see these temples so full that they can no longer become reservoirs? With God, living water can flow through this temple for others that we can see. We can see healingness, and we can see fruitfulness abound. You pray with me. Lord, this is what I want. I want to see fruitfulness. I want to see lives transformed. I just pray, God, that you'd heal me, that you'd send me, that you'd send us, that you would fill this temple. You'd fill these temples with such grace, such victory, such glory to glory that it's unmistakable. There is something very different. So others want to attach to and learn from and walk with. In Jesus' powerful name, make these salty waters pure.